Well, I have the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Diane O'Consti, the president of the Icelandic National League of the United States, and I welcome you to today's program. We are honored to have with us today two members of Iceland's Foreign Service, Bergdis Ellertsdottir, Iceland's ambassador to the United States, and Katrin Sigurdardóttir, Iceland's Honorary Consul in Minnesota. Katrin will actually be leading today's discussion as we go forward. But before we get to that, we've got just a couple of announcements. You have all been placed on mute as attendees to the program. However, we still want to hear your questions. So if you have questions, there is a Q&A button at the lower part of your computer screen. If you click on that, a box will open up and you can type your question in there. If you are not on a computer, if you have a different device, that button may be in the upper right-hand corner, or you may even have to swipe in order to find it. But please know your questions are welcome. Also today, the program is being recorded and will be available on our INLUS YouTube channel. And we will send out a little notice when that's been posted and available to you. So before we get started, well, as I transition this over to Katrin for the program, I'd like to ask Katrin to just tell us a little bit about the role of an honorary consul and your responsibilities and how you interact with the ambassador's office. So thanks, Katrin. I'll let you take it from here.
Unmute. Thank you, Diane. Yes, my name is Katrin Sigurdardóttir. I'm the Honorary Consul for Iceland in Minnesota. I started officially in this role in 2017, along with Dr. Örn Arnar, that most of you recognize. He has over 20 years experience in this job, and in a few years he will enjoy a well-earned retirement. The Honorary Consuls in Iceland, it's a small group of like 23 people roughly. We represent 18 states. Örn and I, we cover at least Minnesota, Iowa, and South Dakota. And we would probably travel elsewhere if the need would arise, if someone in other states needed assistance. Worldwide, Iceland has about 216 consuls in 85 countries. So, and our role is, I sometimes liken us to the, we're like a voluntary army of foreign service workers all over the world. We have many potential roles, and I think it would be great if one was some sort of a combination of a social worker, lawyer, party planner, travel agent, and a marketing specialist. I think that would be a great honorary consul because we have to wear all those hats at some point. We service Icelanders in our area, for example, by issuing emergency passports. They can come to us for absentee voting. And we also service them if they get involved with the law enforcement in our area or get into other trouble. An example of that is like when the pandemic hit, a lot of honorary consuls were helping helping Icelanders getting safely home before all the borders were closed. We are also a resource for non-Icelandic residents of the US. When people were still traveling, we got a lot of calls with questions about the Schengen visas, and other travel related questions. Other interesting jobs that I've had to do in this position is translating text. I went to a choir practice to help a choir pronounce the words to Icelandic lyrics. I've given presentations to scout groups and answered multiple questions about what should I see in Iceland, where am I going, what should I do, and even talk to Americans that are interested in moving to Iceland. So the consuls also support any business relationships between the countries that they live in and the country that they represent. Iceland has a trade office in New York, and we work with them. One of their projects is the Taste of Iceland event that most of us have been to when they come to a city near us, and we're hoping Minnesota will still be on their schedule when they start again. whenever that will be. And so here in Minnesota, we have a strong consular community, and the Icelandic consuls are involved with the Minnesota Consular Corps that represents 32 countries. And we meet quarterly, and we listen to interesting speakers and compare notes on, our things that come into our offices. The Nordic consuls also have a great collaboration, and the largest project for us is the Nordic American Thanksgiving breakfast that has been running for 35 years. Sadly, it has been canceled this year due to the coronavirus, but hopefully next year we'll come back strong. So this is sort of the local side of it, but if something comes up that's more involved, some more serious problems, we obviously reach out to the embassy, and that's our first call if something is major, and they are a great resource to us. And then they, again, handle communication with the Icelandic Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Registrar's Office, and any other office that should be involved in the case. But that's, I would say, very rare, because Icelanders are pretty resourceful and self-sufficient, and they do things themselves their own way, and they figure it out. So that's sort of a little bit of what I have about my end of this. But we are all here to meet the new ambassador of Iceland to the US. She took office last September, replacing Geir Háhorte. She's the first woman to fill this role, and she has an impressive experience in foreign service for the last 30 years. So it's my honor to introduce Mrs. Bergdis Ellertsdottir. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you, Katrin. And I just want to say, because you did such an excellent description of the multiple tasks that our honorary consuls do. So, and I just want to say, for a small foreign service like we have in Iceland, I mean, the honorary consuls are key. They are the extended arm of the foreign ministry and the extended arm of the embassy in Washington. And I just, it's incredible the work and all the efforts that the honorary consuls actually do for Iceland and Icelanders. I mean, many of the consuls are Icelanders, like you, Katrin, but others are also American. And it's just, I mean, I can't, start to say how grateful we are for the work of the consul. So it's just key. I mean, we would not be able to run our foreign service like we do without the help of the honorary consuls, which, by the way, if you don't know, they don't get paid. So
no, yeah. It's a volunteering job. But like when Icelanders meet, the first question is always, hvaðan ertu? Where are you from? And the other question is, hverra manna ertu? Like, who are your people? Where do you come from? So you want to tell us where you come from? I know a lot of the people in the community, Icelandic community here, they have still family in Iceland, and everyone's interested in, like, Sunna knows who's related to whom, and like 9th cousin 4 times removed. So where's your family from, and where are your roots?
Well, first of all, I mean, I grew up in Reykjavik, like most people these days, because almost half of the population lives in Reykjavik or the surroundings town. I even grew up in Breiðholt, which is like a suburbia, the first kind of real suburbia in Reykjavik. Mm-hmm. But my roots, and my parents, especially my mother, was very proud of her roots from the Westfjords. And because I know, Katrin, that you're also from Westfjords.
Yes.
It's from one half of your family.
Yeah.
And it was something that my mother was very proud of, that she was, because the people in the Westfjords, they are hardworking, they are no-nonsense people, they are compassionate and all of that. You know it, you probably heard
yes.
it from your grandmother, So,
absolutely.
So my mother's side is from the Westfjords, but my father's side is from kind of the south. I mean, it's east of, what, around east of Selfoss, if anyone knows where that is. But it's not East Fjords, it's just kind of south, I would say south, where my father, his father was a farmer, but he lost his wife, so he had to stop his farming and move to Reykjavik with his children. So
we call it east of the mountain, austur fyrir fjall.
Yeah, exactly.
East of the
That's
mountain.
where it is. But it's not east.
So what can you tell us about your path to the position that you're in now? How does one go from Breiðholti to Washington, D.C.?
Well, I mean, it's very difficult exactly to know how it all started, but I have the feeling that it started very early on, that it was something that I found fascinating. And when I was growing up, I mean, people in Iceland didn't even travel. I mean, the abroad, other countries, foreign cultures, it was very exciting and something that people did not have access to. So, but I didn't really think about it from when I was like very young. And then when I was hired to the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, my friends, it was on the 31st of December, 1991. And I met all my friends at a party later that night. And I said, do you know what, guys? I was hired. I have a job at the Foreign Ministry. And they all started laughing because they said, oh, that's what you always wanted to do.
Oh,
but
perfect.
somehow so they remember
before you did.
Myself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when was the first time you traveled abroad?
I was probably, I know exactly when it was. I had just been confirmed. I had confirmed my confirmation when I was 13. So I was, I visited my father's sisters in Denmark. So I was there for 2 weeks. That was my first trip abroad to visit my family in Denmark.
Yeah.
So.
And you've lived in multiple places. Like you said, in 91, you were hired. What was your first position and where did it take you?
Well, my first position was in the Trade Department, which at that time had just was working very hard, a very, very small team on all the issues that we had just landed an agreement with the European Union called the EEA, or the European Economic Area Agreement. So that was my first job, and from there my first posting was in Germany. And at that time, and it makes me sound horribly old, the capital of Germany was still in Bonn. So my first postings was in Bonn in Germany. But I had studied in Germany, so it was,
okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think of all your, on your path, what do you think best prepared you for the job that you're in right now?
Well, I think what best prepared me is that I have worked on various issues. I have been in a bilateral post. I've also, which is like, when you're working on trade and culture and issues that are like Iceland, Germany, Iceland, the US. Mm-hmm. But then I worked very much on security and defense issues and on trade issues. And these two issues are the most important ones when we are working with the US.
Yeah. Reading through your CV, I saw trade, security, and cooperation. I saw those three sort of themes in your jobs, and that's probably, you have to use all those in your job today.
Exactly.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your role as an ambassador today? What are your main jobs, and what's a typical day like for you?
Well, I mean, what is the most important thing? I mean, which is something that you were saying earlier. I mean, when we are working on US-Iceland relations, there are three main issues, and it's security and defense, and we still have the bilateral defense agreement with the US, even if, our relationship has changed since they closed the base in 2006. And then it's trade and economic cooperation, and the present foreign minister is very keen on deepening and expanding the trade and economic relations with the US, and that has been very much at the focus of our work since I came. And then you have the Arctic, which is like a new issue. We are presently chairing the Arctic Council, and I would say that that is the primary issue of interest for the US when it comes to Iceland these days. But it also mixes into security and defense, but the Arctic is very important. And then, of course, as you mentioned, a great deal of our work is, of course, to deal with all sorts of what we call consular issues, but is more or less assisting Icelanders, in various ways. So that is, of course, always an important portfolio in Washington. And then, of course, I don't want to forget education and culture. When you're dealing with security, defense, and trade, that's government to government, more or less. Of course, companies, when you're assisting with trade relations but when you're for the wider public in the US, it's culture, which is very important. And we, of course, have had to change all our, plans, which we had for this year. But I don't know if you noticed, but we had this week the yearly Nordic Jazz Festival.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and we had an online band from Iceland. So we try to do this, but culture and also Iceland-US education and exchange of students, and that has always been very, very important. So, but for a typical day of an ambassador in Washington, I would say that no day is a typical day. You have your kind of, I check my calendar every morning when I wake up. Okay, yeah, I have to do this. But then everything always changes. And I must say, there are always fires you have to put out, but they're not always as big as the COVID-19. And I did not expect that I would spend Easter phoning up Icelanders all over the US, Mexico, South America, all over the place to see how they were doing. And as you were saying before, assisting them to get home. But so you never exactly know what will happen.
What the day will
bring. A typical day, I go to work, I have my coffee, very important, but then anything can happen. And that is also the interesting part I find in this job, that it's so, you never know what will happen, and it's very varied, and you have so many different issues. And, maybe the downside is that you have to try to look like as if you are an expert on many issues that you don't know that much about.
So you talked about the COVID, which surprised everybody, but other than that, have there been any other big surprises? Did you know what you were getting yourself into when you when you accepted?
No, you never know. I was very honored to be asked, because of course for us, Washington is a very important post.
Yeah.
I actually did not expect it. I had just started. I'd only been 1 year in New York, and I didn't expect it. So I was so thrilled and honored, and and it has just been, COVID aside, it has been just so rewarding and interesting. In many ways different and much more intensive than I thought it would be, but a very good experience.
Good. You talked about the U.S.-Iceland relations. What are the priorities that the embassy is working on in that area?
As I mentioned before, for us, we are trying as hard as we can to expand trade, to economic relations. We have very regular dialogues, not just with the State Department, but also with with the USTR, those people who are negotiating free trade agreements. And Foreign Minister Guðlaugur Þór really wants to kind of expand, as I said, the trade relations and to be very active in assisting in enhancing trade and helping companies find their way in the US. I mean, it's in many ways, the US is like the Europe, you know, you have all these states, they have different rules and regulations, there are different, you know. Yeah. So we have been very much working on mapping out the states and, you know, what would be interesting for us in each of the states, where are we active now, which is very important. Mm-hmm. And just, as I say, just generally trying to enhance trade as much and economic relations as much as we can. But then again, I mean, COVID has not actually worked in our favor. So
no. So you talked about trying to get companies into the U.S. market. What companies and what sort of areas of business should we look for that are coming to the States from Iceland?
Well, I mean, our job, and that is also why it's important that we are monitoring, you know, rules and regulations, changes to the rules and regulations when it comes to establishing companies, how you do it, you know, and etc. Visas is a big issue. Yeah. So if you could say that we are preparing the ground, and then the companies show interest, and we try to assist them. And I just want to underline that our office in New York, the General Consulate with our trade representative Hlynur, I mean, they are doing most of the groundwork. Okay. We are more government-to-government relations, but of course we also take part in what he is doing. But the thing is, we could think some companies would, you know, have a better chance in the US than others, and we can say that. But the thing is that the companies themselves, they are the ones that, you know, they are the ones that decide. I mean, we want to establish ourselves in the US, and we can say, okay, it's a good idea or a bad idea, but we have to assist them all. Yeah. So, but what we have found is that, of course, all these technical IT startups is a very good option. All that has to do with kind of the wider of blue economy, you know, is very important. Some of you may have heard of companies that are already you know, established in the US, like Össur, like Marel, you know. So I would think that kind of new technology, something, you know, that you add to something rather than that you are, as we say in Iceland, you know, fishing in the same area. Yes. You know. So a know-how, something that we have from our experience in Iceland, from what we have been doing, that is interesting and adds something to what is already there, I think is the most profitable way to deal with.
And maybe some collaboration with existing US companies might be easier.
Yeah, of course.
So in the news, you know, it was very big in the news in Iceland in the last year that both Vice President Mike Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo came to Iceland. Is that a sign that Iceland and the US is working on, you know, a free trade agreement or some major defense issues, or can we read anything into that?
Definitely. What we can read into it is that there is renewed interest in Iceland in the administration. And I think, I mean, very, very big and you know, positive steps that both Pompeo and Pence came to Iceland. And there are different issues behind that, but I mean, we are still, and I think our strategic importance is growing. And the Arctic plays a big role here. So so we are very, very appreciative of this, and it also coincides with the government's and the foreign minister's focus on the US. It has to do with security and defense, of course, as well. And we feel that this is a window of opportunity, and that is why we have been pursuing all sorts of other issues that we feel that now we have the ear of Washington, so to speak. So we are pursuing issues like visas for investors and traders, like E1, E2 in Congress and in the Senate. And so we feel that this is really something that we need to take advantage of. And we have actually worked very hard on that. And the minister has been multiple times in Washington. There have been congressmen coming to Iceland, which he has had meetings with. So there has been a lot of activity. And I think that's a very positive sign of the relations between the two countries.
All right. Well, if you look at the size difference and what Iceland can bring to the table, you look at if you look at the list of the US's business partners, Iceland is down around, like, I think it's ranked number 99 of the list. So it's such a small percentage of their economy. So do you think it's mostly the location of Iceland that is attractive to the US, or is there anything else behind it?
I mean, things are relative. I mean, for the US, most partners are small partners, apart from a few from China, Russia, maybe the UK, France, Germany. But, you know, so I mean, being a small partner and a small partner, you know, there are a lot of small partners. Most partners, as I said, and I very much learned to appreciate that in the UN. I mean, most of the countries are small players. Mm-hmm. So there are just a few big ones. So, I mean, that in itself is not an issue, I feel. But the thing is that if you just think of that Iceland provides 16% of all cod that is consumed in the US. I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if 16% of cod would vanish from the US, you know, that's a lot. Yeah. Our trade in salmon products is growing. So I don't think we shouldn't be thinking so much small or big partners. I mean, what can we bring to the table? And I think we, apart from the issue that you raised, which I think is very important, which is the strategic location of Iceland, which is of importance, but we try to, you know, trade is one thing and security and defense is another thing. But it all kind of adds up to Iceland being an interesting partner for the US.
Okay. And what would a free trade agreement give Iceland? What importance would that have?
First of all, on a free trade agreement, I mean, of course, we have tariffs and we have all sorts of things, you know. A free trade agreement can be very many things. But what it provides is a predictability of the trade. If you have a free trade agreement, your partner cannot decide to put huge tariffs on, like we have seen now. I mean, has been a sort of a trade war between, for example, the European Union and the US, and you have a predictability of your trade. And that's very important for the companies that are looking to trading with the US or vice versa. So you have, you know what you have. If you don't have it, you don't know. I mean, things can change, or, you know, so it's very important for the predictability of it. And also it is a sign of very close relations. It's a sign that you are a trusted partner of the US. And that gives you a status when you are looking for opportunities in the US.
Yeah, that's a good point. We talked a little bit about the Arctic and the importance of that is changing with climate change. And when I was in Iceland, I heard the word climate change refugees. Is that something you see more people wanting to immigrate to Iceland because of climate change? And are we preparing for that in some way?
I would not say that we were preparing for it in other ways than try to, as much as we can, turn the tide of the climate change. But you're absolutely right. I mean, climate change has so many implications. It has, I mean, in the end, it has security implications, because if you have, and we saw that a few years ago when we had the migration crisis in Europe, when you suddenly have all those people, you know, coming, and when you know, that creates problems. So we will definitely, I mean, and that is just one of the reasons why we need to tackle climate change, is that we want people to stay home and to try to, you know, that we try to help them where they are.
Yeah.
But definitely this is one of the graver issues of climate change. I mean, drought in Africa, I mean, water will be the resource that will be so sought after. And that is why, you know, Iceland is so important, and we need to make sure that we are the ones that own and are the ones that can take care of this very, very important resource, which probably in the future will become much more important than oil. Access to water will be very important.
Absolutely. All right. I know the community, the INLUS community is very invested, and they want to know what they can do to help the mission. Help, you know, how can they be of service to Iceland in their communities? Do you have any pointers?
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a very good question. I mean, first of all, just educating people about Iceland. What is Iceland? What does it mean? It has become less difficult now than it was maybe 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. I don't think when I was in New York, I ever sat in a cafe without the person next to me talking about the trip to Iceland, or a friend going to Iceland, or whatever. So, I mean, tourism has helped a lot. You know, people are much more aware of Iceland than they were maybe 10, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. But this awareness of Iceland, who we are, is I think one of the important roles. And then for us, it's also important that we have people with knowledge, local knowledge. So people who know people who are in business, are in politics. I mean, I'm not saying you need to know the governor personally, but, you know, all contacts, all networks can be useful for us when, for example, we get a phone call one day and it's like, you know, the minister wants to go to Minnesota. And then I'm like, Katrin, who do you know? Whom can we meet? You know, yeah. So I think this networking and the educating of what Iceland is all about, I think these two things are very important for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So turning to COVID-19 and traveling during these times, it's a very strange time even for domestic travels in the US, but Iceland has been thinking outside the box and trying to jumpstart their very important tourism industry. What are your hopes for Iceland when at the end of this, or at these times when they're opening up and they're letting people in? What it's a little scary to some people.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
I mean, first of all, as most of you know, I mean, tourism had become the most important industry in Iceland, and COVID is, of course, I mean, it's a terrible blow, economic blow. There are so many, the unemployment rose very rapidly. The government had to do a lot of kind of rescue packaging. So, I mean, this was a huge blow to us. So, of course, the government is trying to think outside the box and how we can get things gradually going back to normal. As you may know, that Iceland did a very good job of fighting COVID, and you know, we probably can't get rid of this beast, but at least, you know, very much taming it and getting things under control. So we are now gradually opening, but people will be tested at the airport. And if people test positive, they have to quarantine and all of that stuff. But we are, of course, just opening very gradually. And we are following very much, we are Iceland, not everyone knows this, we are part of the travel zone Schengen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come to Iceland, you can travel freely without any restrictions to the whole of Schengen, which is most of the European Union countries. So we are very much following what is being done there. So at the moment, there's a travel ban of Europeans to the US, and there's a travel ban of the United States to Iceland and to Europe. And that, of course, is a concern to us. It's a concern to the tourism business, which, I mean, we had almost, I think, 800,000 tourists from the US last year. Icelander very much built on this business model of transiting people from the US to Europe through Iceland. So we need to find a way to get over this as soon as possible, and hopefully it will happen this summer. I mean, we heard 1st of July. Now that seems very unlikely. It will probably be closer to August. But we have no news of the US opening up to Icelanders. And we actually have a lot of problems because, for example, we have students who left the US to go home and now can't go back. Or we have new students who have been accepted to universities in the US but can't travel to the US. So this is a very it's a very difficult situation. So hopefully we will find ways to deal with this, and at least to have, like we have now. I mean, there are certain things, people are exempted from the travel ban to Iceland, for example. I mean, we try to attract filmmakers
Mm-hmm.
and film crews, and that has gone very well. And if people, have certain issues or family or whatever, you can go. Students from the US, if they have been accepted to a university in Iceland, they can come. It's more stricter the other way around, actually. But we need to really work on this, and hopefully also the COVID situation in the US will be more positive,
Yes.
so to speak.
Yeah, and it's a fluid situation, absolutely, and it's hard to decide. So I thought Iceland was open to everybody as long as you took the test.
No.
Is that?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's not open to US citizen, and I can tell you that we get so many phone calls every single day where we have to explain this. I don't have, I have been constantly taking the phone these days, with people who are asking about traveling to Iceland and things like that. So at the moment, US citizens cannot travel to Iceland.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm.
So, but if you're an Icelandic citizen and you need an Icelandic passport, I could issue an emergency passport to anyone.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because the US has been there has been very little activity. First of all, the president of the US is, of course, has extended ban on any new visas or green cards. And then I read somewhere that there are 1.8 million passports which need to be worked on. Applications which have not been processed. So we get thank you. So we get a lot of requests from people who cannot get the passport for their children, so they need an Icelandic passport to travel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a very tough time, I would say.
Absolutely. Oh well, time is running away from us. Just a few questions in the end, sort of about being an Icelander in America. So, what how have you been, how long have you lived in the States?
This is my second year.
Only your second year, yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, you lived in Europe, or?
Yes, yes.
And how can you compare those two, being an Icelander in Europe and Icelander in the States? What's different?
It's quite different. Even if it's difficult to exactly explain what it is. But I would say being an Icelander in the US these days, it's a privilege. I mean, people are so interested, so positive. Most people have someone in the family or their circle of friends who have been to Iceland and loved it, and people want to go and they want to, so I would say that, yeah, I've been so welcomed. People are so interested. Good. I feel, it's amazing. I was so amazed when I came to Washington, just the interest people have both in government, but also other people. I don't think I've ever had so many interviews with all sorts of,
oh, wow.
From journalists or from, people are just genuinely interested in Iceland. Yeah. And that makes my work very easy, I can tell you.
Yes. Iceland has a lot of goodwill around the world, which is exactly. a good feeling.
Yeah.
What do you miss about Iceland?
Well, I mean, this is such a cliche answer. I miss the pools.
The pool.
The swimming pools, of course.
Yes.
What else?
Yeah. I used to say the tap water. That was that was my security blanket that I missed in Iceland. Yeah. Just being able to turn the faucet and drink the cold water.
Yeah, and that's another one. Yeah.
And I know you're going home. Mm-hmm. It's hard, you probably have two homes, which can be very confusing. So what's the first thing you do when you land in Iceland? What do you look forward to the most when you go home?
I look forward to the air. I look forward to breathing, and you have all this fresh air in your lungs. That is what I can't wait. And then, of course, I will have a shrimp sandwich and pilsner.
Okay. And it's usually windy and rainy in Keflavik. So it's when you come out and you just wrap your coat around you and the wind fills your lungs with fresh air.
You have to be Icelandic to appreciate that. I feel sorry for the tourists who come out with their thin jackets or t-shirts. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to hate this. The moment they get out of the plane, they're going to hate this.
Yeah.
But,
they didn't do their research. Yeah. And when you're flying Icelandair and you land in Keflavik and they say, "Góðir Íslendingar, velkomin heim."
Yeah, I cry.
Welcome you home on the plane. Yeah, that's a good feeling. That is a good feeling.
We do have a few questions that have come in.
Okay.
And one is from a Canadian attendee, and he would like to know how much interaction or what types of interaction and collaboration you have, Bergdis, between the embassy in the US and the embassy in Ottawa.
I'm so glad I got this question now and not like half a year ago, because COVID has a lot of negative things. But one of the things that it has actually brought us is that we have so much more coordination between our embassies. I mean, we have now weekly meetings. I have weekly meetings with my colleague in Ottawa, and we compared books, and sometimes he has information and I tell him what I'm doing and how I do it. And so actually, and we're going to continue this post-COVID. So yes, I'm very glad to say we coordinate very closely.
Great. We also have a question here about your three themes of the trade, the Arctic, education, and culture. I believe you answered the question on trade quite thoroughly, but do you have any specific projects underway regarding culture and education that the folks here in the U.S., especially our heritage, our initial settlement locations, that could help you out with?
Well, I probably would not directly say it's heritage, but we have, I mean, we try to be as active as our very meager budget, you know, in culture. So so we actually had a very good program lined up for March, April, and the fall. We had Eliza Reid, the president's wife, coming because she's very interested in literature. So what we were going to do was to introduce newly translated authors into English, especially young authors, focus on women. And we've decided we're going to do this in the fall. And so hopefully we will have the president's wife participate with us in that, but it will have to be virtual, of course. But we found that our jazz thing actually went very well virtual, so hopefully that will go well. And then we have a lot of activity around the Fulbright program. I mean, both we have, I mean, student exchange, but also, you know, scientists and professors and you know, people who are working on Arctic issues, working on security issues. And now recently we have added, or not me myself, but to the Fulbright cooperation, health issues, which includes COVID. So I think there is a lot going on, but I feel that I remember when I was young, I think there were a lot more Icelandic students in the US than we have these days. And of course, the cost of the university education in the US is an issue here, combined with that the student loans in Iceland, which used to be, I think, more, what can I say, kind of, I mean, they would be able to
Cover more of the cost.
Yeah, exactly. As now they are people have to have so much money in their own pockets, even people who have scholarships. I mean, I know of people with scholarships who have had to turn down their offers because, you know, the cost even outside the scholarships are too high. So I mean, so I think we need to look at that and see what possibilities we can have. I mean, in Europe, you have all these, like Erasmus, and you have all these different issues where you have exchange students without a lot of cost, especially not when it comes to even, I mean, the UK used to be part of this. Hopefully it will still be after it leaves the European Union, but this is an issue that I'm very interested in kind of trying to look into that, how we can, because it's so important. When I just remember I had friends whose family had, you know, fathers had studied medicine in the US and then came back, and, you know, it just, you have friends for life, and it's very important, I think, for the understanding and the friendship between the US and Iceland that this is continued.
Now we have another question that's more about today's current events, and that is, what is the Icelandic perspective on the civil unrest here in the US and the racism in both countries?
Racism, the thing with racism is, I mean, it's not just in the police, it's just not in the US, it's all over the place. It's also in Iceland. And I think, I mean, I mean, of course, I'm not talking about riots, but kind of this issue being brought to the surface and discussed, I think is very important, and it actually has had an impact all over Europe and also in Iceland. People have come forward, and I mean, people who are, you know, of different races have said, you know, you might not think this, but actually Iceland is quite racist, and we're like, oh, no, that can't be. But so I think this is a very, very important debate, and I think we all need to, you know, look into our own societies, and we need to see how we can fight this, because I mean, this is just, I mean, it's like we have in Iceland managed to to work very hard on women's issues. I mean, I think we have 50,000 people of the 350,000 Icelanders are people, you know, who have moved to Iceland from all over. So I think this is very important. We all need to work on this. And I think we can all learn from each other.
Okay. Katja, do you have other questions for the ambassador?
Well, I just wanted to say that we hope to see you in Minnesota one day. And I know we're from all over, but Diane and I are from Minnesota. We would love to host you if you would kind of come and visit this community here. It's a great group of people, and Minnesota is pretty nice. There's yeah, I've heard it's hard to get people to move here, but it's also really hard to get people to move away from here. So it must be something that they have here. So anytime if you have an opportunity, we would love to welcome you.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Thank you, Diane. I mean, just meeting the two of you is worth a visit, I would say. So I mean, the beauty, but also the problem in a way for me being, you know, we are a small embassy, that there are so many places you need to see in the US. It's such a vast and beautiful country, and we have Icelandic societies, as you said, all over the place. And I would really want to meet everyone. I would really hope that this COVID thing, at least, like, you know, that makes it safe to travel, because I would really like to. That was one of the things I really looked forward to coming to Washington, was like, yes, this is my opportunity to see the United States, you know, and I would really love that. And Minnesota will be on top of my list.
Awesome. Yeah, I just thank you for being willing to speak with us, and it was great getting to know you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. And
thank you.
Yeah, over to you, Diane.
All right. Well, thank you both. This has been just a delightful program. Thank you very much, Bergdis, for giving us your time, and you too, Katja, and talking with us and leading this discussion. One of the things you talked about, Bergdis, was Iceland Naturally. We are going to post the social links for them on our website, and also probably as in our social media areas. So we'll have that, as well as could we post some social media sites for the foreign ministry and the ambassador's office. Would that be agreeable to you?
It would be perfect.
Okay.
I would very much appreciate that.
Okay, we can do that. We can do that. As I said, it's been a wonderful program, and I've learned a lot. I had very little knowledge of what the ambassador's office did or what you were responsible for, and this has been very educational and very interesting. So thank you both. And I'd just like to say that the INLUS is really committed to providing programs like this through webinars and classes and other offerings that we may have. So please, if you haven't signed up for our blog, go to our website and sign up for our blog. We also have a new website, inlus.org. That's on a new platform, and really is a very beautiful website now. Again, just contact us, follow us on social media, drop us a note. All of our contact information is on the website. And again, thank you everyone for attending today's program. We'll see ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.